The Titanic Prediction. In 1898, author Morgan Robertson wrote a novel called Futility. It told the story of a massive, unsinkable ship called the Titan. It sailed across the Atlantic with too few lifeboats, then hit an iceberg, and sank. 14 years later, the real Titanic set sail, too few lifeboats, North Atlantic, iceberg, and the same tragic fate, the number of passengers, the size of the ship, the speed, the cause, all eerily identical. The similarities don't stop there. Size of the ship? Titan, 800 feet. Titanic, 882 feet. Passenger capacity? Titan, 3,000. Titanic, 2,435. Survival numbers? Both lost over half their passengers because of limited lifeboats. This remains one of history's most perfect predictions, a fictional tragedy that became real with terrifying accuracy. The Double Trouble Twins. In the state of Ohio, 1939, two newborn identical twins were separated at birth. Different families adopted them, different towns, different childhoods, no connection, no contact, no idea the other even existed. For 39 years, they lived two completely independent lives. When the twins finally met as adults, their adoptive parents had unknowingly given both boys the same first name, James. So one grew up as James Lewis, the other as James Springer. Both of them had a wife named Linda, and both marriages ended in divorce. Then both of them remarried with wife also named Betty. Each of them had a son, both also named James Allen, with only a single letter difference. Both of the James also became sheriffs in their local counties. This remains one of the most astonishing examples of real-life twin synchronicity. The Doppelganger Birthdays. Around 2015 to 2016 in Germany, a man in Germany boarded a train and noticed that the person sitting across from him looked almost exactly like him. Not just similar, it's nearly identical in facial structure, hairstyle, and beard. Then they started talking, took a photo together, and compared their IDs out of curiosity. They discovered several surprising similarities. They shared the same birthday, born in the same region of Germany, and worked in similar job fields. Their appearance was nearly indistinguishable at a glance. The coincidence was unusual enough that they later participated in a doppelganger study conducted by researchers. As part of the study, they took a DNA test. The results showed 0% genetic relation, not brothers, not distant relatives, no measurable biological connection. In other words, they were two completely unrelated individuals who happened to share a highly similar physical appearance and a few overlapping life details. The Finnish truck accident. In Finland 2002, there were two elderly twin brothers, both around 70 years old, who had lived separate lives for many years. They lived in different towns, had different routines, and weren't in frequent contact. One day, the older twin was riding his bicycle along a road in the town of Raahe in a winter condition. Visibility was poor, and traffic conditions were difficult. Tragically, he was struck by a truck and died at the scene. Local police officers documented the accident and contacted the family. About 2 hours later, before the news had even reached him, the younger twin, who lived in another part of the same region, was also riding his bicycle. Under similar conditions, he was hit by a truck on the same stretch of road, only a little farther down. He died in almost the exact same way as his brother. When officers realized the victims were identical twins, both killed on bicycles, on the same road, and within hours of each other, they said the coincidence was so extreme that they initially thought the report contained a mistake. But it wasn't. Two brothers who had lived separate lives ended up experiencing nearly identical final moments. Not by design, and not through any shared plan, but through one of the strangest and most documented coincidences in Finland's accident records. The Baby Catcher. In the early 1930s, a man named Joseph Figlock was walking through a narrow alley in Detroit. It was an ordinary day. Nothing unusual, just a routine stroll past apartment buildings. Then something completely unexpected happened. A baby fell from a fourth-floor window of one of the buildings above. With no warning and no time to react, the child dropped straight down and landed directly onto Figlock's arms and shoulders. Miraculously, both Figlock and the baby survived with only minor injuries. Newspapers called it a lucky, almost unbelievable accident. A year later, in 1938, the same toddler, the same child, David Thomas, fell again from a fourth-floor window in the same building. And astonishingly, he landed on Joseph Figlock again. Once again, both survived, and the incident was reported in Detroit newspapers as one of the most improbable coincidences ever documented.